He's a one, a masterpiece.
All right. Well, let's get going then. Okay, so once again, your security compliance for SaaS, how to reduce costs and win more deals with automation. My name is Stephen Lurie. I am the nominal moderator for today. With us today, our guest speakers are Meiran Galis, who is CEO, I think founder as well of Scytale. We have Ryan Lasmaili, who is founder and CEO of Vaultree, who's a customer of Scytale. And then we also have Kevin Malka, who is a senior manager at Ernst & Young, I think Tel Aviv, and as well their auditing group there, auditing security risk. Just so everybody knows, we'll be doing our best to answer our questions throughout the webinar. Also, the webinar is being recorded, so if you can't attend the whole thing, we'll send out a copy of that. My name is Stephen Lurie. I think I already said that. And with that, I think we'll kick things off. So just kind of to kick things off, Meiran, I think security is increasingly important. It's increasingly on everybody's radar. And for SaaSes, it's increasingly something that has to be dealt with early on. So why don't you give us a little bit your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So security is a must for startup. It's not a question of if, but rather a question of when. Security, when it comes for security compliance, it might be security regulations like the NIS2, the HIPAA if companies operate in the healthcare industry, the SOC 2 if a company based as a cloud-based platform and any business activities in the United States. SOC 1, ISO 27001, and the list just go on and on and on. So because of that reason, security and also privacy, by the way, the GDPR, the CCPA, all of those regulations, security certification, attestation reports, and general standards and frameworks are essential for companies in order to build trust, to enable business, and to penetrate for new markets. So this is the main reason why companies need compliance. Of course, the side effect is that it's really helpful in building processes that meant for scale, reducing the risks, and also build trust with customers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the things about SaaS too is, and maybe give us your take on this, is that bigger companies are adopting SaaS quite a bit more. So that would seem to put even more of the emphasis. That seems to be one of the transitions that's happening in SaaS as well. Is that an issue as well?
Yeah. It's a big issue. Companies, that's actually depend. If we talk to startups has limited resources. They focus on like millions of different things. Building the product, finding customer, hiring people, getting the next funding round, and all the in the middle, all the accounting, all the legal, all the HR, the operation, the customer success, and that's massive. That's massive. And if you got a blocker, in some cases, you don't have a competitive advantage when it comes for compliance. If you're selling to enterprises around the world, that's a big thing. Actually, it's a huge thing because companies want to have the trust and the credibility with their vendors. Today, the world became to more of a very much based on data. So my data not go only to my vendor, but it actually goes to all my vendors, and also my customers. The data that I'm keeping for my customers, it might be the data of their customers. So it's like an endless chain of data which Intel risk because it might be personal identifiable information, health information, financial information, maybe just business information. And all of those things for startups is critical to really feel and to really feel that they do the maximum they can. The maximum is possible to protect their data. Also, encryption is a big thing. I'm sure Ryan over here will be able to share more his thoughts about encryption. But altogether, it came for reduce the risk, build the trust, and eventually enable or boost sales, depending on the market.
Good. Ryan, you've got time considerations, so let's work you in here. You're a customer. Just for everyone know, you're a customer of Scytale, and these are the issues you face. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one, cybersecurity is tackled from a lot of different angles today, right? Whether it is your encryption, is it your key management, is it audit logs, is it your certification? Very important. Whatever way you're looking at it, it's an ecosystem within any organization that has to be considered from day one. Now, especially for us, we're an encryption technology company, and encryption is part of that ecosystem, but so is especially security compliance. So yes, for us especially, we have to have security compliance at every single step in mind, and everything we do has to be in consideration of security compliance. But what I would say here is, in general, from day one, security compliance becomes and is a topic that has to be embedded in every single organization, in everything that they are considering, whether it is product, is it growing the organization, is it IT systems, infrastructure, ensuring that, okay, we're going to have customers, we're going to work with the outside world, how are we compliant from that standpoint? So, and in this case, we've been looking at that actually very early in the days, quite early in the days, and realized, look, this is not only an absolute must, but we need to work with someone that focuses especially on smaller businesses, not only the large ones. So if we're talking about going to the likes of big techs that are covering certifications for, I don't know, like 100,000 employee company, they're not going to be suitable for us. It's not going to work out. So someone that understands us and works with us from day one. And this is exactly where we also got to know Scytale and Meiran in this case, and working together on this, which has been absolutely amazing since day one. But yeah, so it is a consideration from day one, and not 100 days or a year or 2 years into it. Unfortunately, that is the case, and that mindset has to change. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like it's increasingly a product issue. And you said that you actually evaluated quite a few organizations. How many was it again?
I think I checked that they're just the last time 17 as a total, actually.
Okay.
So 17, yeah. So some of the bigger ones, smaller ones as well. But yeah, I mean, I was personally introduced then also to Meiran because I was speaking to an advisor voicing my concerns, and really one of the biggest concerns actually with the ecosystem right now is the personal relationship working with a company in this case, and the focus and the needs that that company has, which is very different for, let's say, a startup all the way from seed round A, B, C, D, versus someone that is listed on the exchange with 100,000 employees. So, and we couldn't really find that specific need. So yeah, and this is really where the introduction was made. Advisor knew exactly someone that was going to help us in the space, and that was Scytale.
And you said you got to work on this very early on, but did you have any legacy issues with legacy code that were challenging, or did you get? I mean, I understand that's an issue if you take security on too late.
Absolutely no, we didn't. No, I mean, we as an encryption technology company, we are very conscious of absolutely everything that we're doing, all the way from keeping stuff locked in a safe 10,000 feet under the ground to you know, whatever we are looking at and working on, right, which is extremely sensitive. So it was even more of a consideration for us from that standpoint. But one element I would consider here is my background all the way to actually the very first days, I was an auditor too. So I had a good understanding of organizations in this case and how they are behaving, the risk areas, and moving into this, it was one of the first topics I brought up actually.
Yeah, I think the problem with security is the risk and costs are poorly understood. And the cost, I think, especially what's understood is Meiran mentioned trust, the necessity to build trust with your customers. But those companies that are using Scytale or whatever they're doing for security, if they lose control there, they lose trust with all their customers, and that's the devastating thing, or can be very devastating. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, trust is actually the most valuable commodity that you're trading on a day-to-day basis as an organization. And Meiran knows this himself, and Kevin here too, how you're working with an organization from a trust perspective. It might take you a year to build up a relationship, but then it's a blink of an eye, that goes. And if you're working, in an environment and something happens to you, and especially from a security compliance perspective, that could technically ruin your business. So it's not even we pay a small fine or something happens, we forget about it. Businesses, especially small ones, don't have the money or time, and they're gonna disappear. So
okay, that's great. Where would you guys like to go from here? Does anyone have some slides they would share, or should we work? Kevin, do you have something you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Steve. And I think it was a great intro, because one thing that we often mention, with customers when they start and they want to start as early as possible now, is the way that they have to find the right partner for the audit, either on the consulting and the platform side, but also like on the auditor side. The whole thing needs to be put together in order to build the trust and the relationship. If you get an auditor that have no clue of what you're talking about when you're talking about encryption in the case of Ryan, but you're also talking about automation, evidence collection, and continuous auditing. So those principles, I think, should be really like a high priority when you start building the relationship with the auditor. And at the end of the day, it's a relationship between three parts: the service organization, obviously, if there is a consultant or a platform like Scytale, so the platform, and of course the auditor, who will also be involved in the day-to-day operation of the project. So I think it was a great intro.
No.
That's great. Maybe I would like to take like 5 minutes. We did prepare some couple of slides.
Absolutely.
Just a brief introduction about what is security compliance, what is the thing that we speak over here for those that are not really into the details. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see that. If you can see it.
No. Yep. It's coming up. Great.
All right. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we discussed a little bit about SaaS companies need security compliance. They need it in order to enable sales, to build the trust and boost the growth. That's pretty clear. But what companies should understand that if they think compliance is expensive, they should try non-compliance. Eventually, in the end of the day, that will cost much more than being compliant. Also, being compliant actually build very robust processes and procedure within the organization that will support the organization growth. But what is security compliance in general? So I mentioned before a little bit of security and privacy framework. When it comes for security, there is the SOC 2 and the ISO 27001, in which I'm going to zoom in soon. The NIST 853, CMMC, Cloud Security Alliance, STAR level 1 and 2. In the financial aspect, we can see the PCI DSS, the SOC 1, the SOX regulation, and the ITGC, the IT General Control, healthcare, high trust, HIPAA, privacy, GDPR, CCPA, but it's actually massive. It's not that there are only 2 regulations. There are dozens of regulations around the world for privacy, for financial, for security, and taking care for everything. And that's a challenge. AWS had in 2022 74 security certification, attestation, and regulation that they need to be in compliance. So just in a nutshell, ISO 27001 stands for the International Organization for Standardization. It's actually a certification that companies will need to go through an audit, an external audit, every single year. Now, there is a family. All the ISO 27000 family actually contain multiple certification that might be relevant for some companies. So the ISO 27001, this is a basis, this is a foundation for the information security management system. But there are also additional other certification within this group. For example, 27017, which is more focused on the use of cloud services. 27018, which is more focused on the protection of personally identifiable information. 27799 regarding health information, and the 27701, which this is more about security technique and privacy information management. So companies in some cases will need to go for a couple of ISO certification, not only one. When we speak about the SOC 2, the SOC 2 is based on the American Institute for Certified Public Accountants. So as it sounds, because this is American, it's much more massive and requested in the United States, in North America. There are two types for the SOC 2. SOC 2 Type 1, which this is an audit about the design and implementation of controls, versus SOC 2 Type 2, which this is an audit on the design, implementation, and effectiveness of controls over a period of time. So this is more comprehensive, and this is why the Type 2 is so much requested for companies selling in the United States. And eventually, the final delivery will be a report, a 50 to 100 page report. This is an attestation report with an independent auditor's opinion. There are a couple of the scope of the SOC 2 is a bit different than the ISO 27001, as you all can see on the screen. Security on the top right side of the circle, and this is a mandatory. That's a must. It's actually structured from 9 different subjects. Starts from organizational stuff regarding management, board, HR, risk assessment, and deep dive into the bits and bytes of logical access, physical access, IT, security, change management, vendor risk assessment, and etc. Availability, processing, integrity, confidentiality, and privacy are also might be relevant for companies. If you considering if SOC 2 is relevant for you, I would love to assist. You can also go into our website. There is a SOC 2 Academy. It's great stuff for those that want to learn about themselves and understand more about the SOC 2 and what might be relevant for them. So on a high level, the difference between SOC 2 and ISO 27001, SOC 2 scope based on the 5 trust service principle, while security is a must, all the rest are voluntary. And the scope of the ISO 27001 based on the ISMS, the Information Security Management System, and the Statement of Applicability, Annex A. Market applicability, SOC 2 is more relevant to the North America, and the ISO 27001 more relevant into the UK, EU, and etc. Both of them are global standards, all right? But there are in some cases, some focus on specific regions. And the certification process might take a while, all right? If companies looking for SOC 2 Type 2, it might take somewhere between 5 to 12 months. That's 6 to 12 months. It's very much depend. While in the ISO 27001, it might start with 4 months, but also depend on the deployment, the size of the organization, and etc. And the accreditation body is different, and the SOC 2 is AICPA, while the ISO is International Organization for Standardization. But the bottom line over here that you should understand, there is some common ground between the SOC 2 and the ISO 27001.
Okay.
But there are also some differentiation. The main differentiation is within the approach. While in the SOC 2, the auditor will be looking backwards for the effectiveness over a period of time, and based on trust but verify approach, very much based on data. In the ISO 27001, it's going to be based more over continuous improvement, reviewing of the policies, procedure, interviews, and that's the main difference between the two. Audits can be fun. Right? Every one of us that went through an audit, I guess he liked the process, because this is something that companies need to do and collect lots of screenshots and be very organized build it. Maybe sometimes they need to manage a couple of audits. Of course, we can help, but if you do it yourself, organization is a key. Organization and harnessing the relevant stakeholders in your company. And security compliance will always be time-consuming, complicated, and it's got to be urgent. And this is what you should think about when you're going for your security compliance. So the main 3 takeaways from this like 6-minute slide will be: first, understand which frameworks are relevant for your company. That might build the law. If you operate in the EU, that just might be the regulation. You must do it. You might also have legal commitments when signing a data processing agreement with customers. Second, it might be something that you need in order to sell or to build trust or to build a relationship with one of your potential customers. So the identification of framework is critical. Second is identify and harness the relevant stakeholders. You need their assistance. You need them to understand the value of the process and why you do what you do. And third, it's prepare your team for the project to find the right partner to guide you with the process. If you do it yourself, if you experience, if you have the time, if you have all the support, if you have the tools, go for it by yourself. But if you think that external help might be something that can boost your the effectiveness and the quality of everything that you do, I highly recommend finding the right partner for you. And yeah, I think that was just a high-level presentation of the process for those that joined the webinar, but don't really dive into the bits and bytes of the process. And yeah, I will hope that it helps for some people over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, really quickly, which standards do you support?
So actually it's both SOC 2 Type 2 and ISO 27001. Now, maybe actually adding to everything that you said there, Meiran, one of the biggest elements, and I think this is for everyone to consider, not only from a compliance perspective, but especially from an organizational value add perspective. In the end, the value that is going to be unlocked starting this process early, and in this case with Scytale, is tremendous. So the value that is being brought is, yes, you have the security element, but in the end, there are a lot of elements, and just to give you some ideas here, that benefited and that actually helped us. One is time. The other one is complexity. The other one is being able to work through this process and understand it in an easy manner. Work with easiness, in this case, let's say with the auditors together through the platform. Actually, it actually makes a life for an organization not only incredibly easy, but it unlocks the value. And that value for an organization is tremendous because one, time you cannot buy back. In terms of missing and being able to go through this process smoothly is incredibly important, because we don't have not only no time, but to be certified and to do this passing in one go and being able to do this swiftly and quickly in a manner that is efficient for the organization is vital to be able to get to the next phase, which is meeting customer needs. Talking, for example, for us to a large bank or financial institution or another organization in the US or in Europe, for them, it is not, let's say in this case, not only important to look at it from a security compliance perspective, but we mentioned trust earlier, and building that trust and embedding that trust. And if we can show, look, this is what we've done, this is who we are, this is the process, then that is unlocking value in our relationship with customers. And that is something that you cannot buy, right? And from that standpoint, actually has been enabled for us with Scytale. So it's been absolutely brilliant. And one thing I would say is it has to happen early. And if you're starting this process actually late, you are risking having to work for months and months and months through a lot of different elements in the organization that you actually have to fix up and clean up, right?
Yeah.
So this has been a situation for us, but absolute pleasure working with Scytale in this case.
Great. And just for precision, did you pull in an outside auditor as well to help you audit?
Yeah, absolutely. We did. Yes.
Okay.
We did.
Well, great. Well, it sounds like time, resources, trust, and it looks like you would have lost customers had you not done this. And the later you start, the more time and resources you're going to lose, and it's going to hamper growth as well.
Absolutely.
And then do you have a CSO finally, or I mean, do you have a CSO today?
We are going to actually bring one into the organization, but we have actually a project manager that acts as a CSO in this case, and is working within the organization from that standpoint. But I think the element from a small company, and this is not only for, let's say, a security officer, but it is the whole organization. The whole organization becomes involved, and when it is smaller, the educational element, yes, it's incredibly important, but it is incredibly valuable to actually have that mindset and the educational element started from a very early process and spread across the organization. So with Scytale in this case, for example, we had very, very early on different elements of the organization involved with the platform, and they were able and in a simple manner access the right information, look at the right information for them, and then be involved within the company to get the right action points in place. And this was a lot smoother than I actually expected. So, which I think is, again, a win-win. But yeah, the whole organization should be involved and will get involved.
Okay. It's so often the case. Transformation requires buy-in for across the organization. Well, listen, we want to be mindful of your time. Thank you for your contributions. You're free to go when you need to go. If you have anything to add, probably is the last minute before you go. I'm not sure if there's.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure, Meiran, Kevin, Steve, having me here. And yeah, look, it's been amazing working with Scytale, nonetheless. Really smooth from that standpoint, and we're looking forward to our continued relationship. But yeah, thank you very much again.
You bet.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thanks. Take care. Bye. Bye.
You bet. Kevin, maybe you can help me understand, what is the role of an auditor? What's your role in there, and how do you work with Scytale?
Sure. So first, you mentioned just now whether or not Ryan used an auditor for the SOC 2 process. So it's actually not really a question. It's a must-have. Okay, meaning that at the end of the day, it's an attestation report. So you need a CPA firm. Like SOC 2 is an attestation report. You need a CPA firm to sign on the report. Okay. Then of course there's EY, but there's other companies that can do that. But you absolutely need to have an auditor. So on our side, what we are doing is that we make sure that the client, the service organization, understand the frameworks, understand the requirements behind all the controls. The SOC 2. Meiran mentioned about the difference, between SOC 2 and ISO, but I think that the main difference is it's that SOC 2 is an attestation report based on the AICPA criteria, which are not controls. The controls, they are descriptive, they are not prescriptive. Whereas in ISO, it's a certification where the controls are clearly defined. There is not much room, for discussion, etc. In SOC 2, so there's a process where we discuss with the customer. We make sure that they are up to date, to the latest controls and technologies. We want to make sure that we understand their environment, that they also understand that they are in charge of the process, meaning that they can work with a company like Scytale, but at the end of the day, the owner of the controls and of the process will always be the customer. Okay, the Scytale and us, we're here to help with a different role. Scytale, we can define that as a facilitator when they help the customers with their different integrations, the platform, etc. And they also create the link between the customer and the auditors. So, for example, I know that Meiran's team have some customer representative, so we're always in contact with them to make sure that the flow of the audit is being well managed and that communication is always up to date. So, if I would summarize, our role, it's of course to sign on the report, but it's also to be the partner with the service organization throughout the process to make sure that everything is going accordingly. And of course, if there are things like controls that are not operating effectively, we need to let them know and discuss on how to proceed moving forward.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One trend in organizations, especially in SaaSes and B2B SaaSes in the last couple of years, is that before we used to build a product for a single market, go try and dominate that market, and then move out into other markets. Increasingly, from day one, people are focusing on a product that can be delivered internationally. So, as far as that, does that mean day one, if you're building an international product, you have to be ISO and SOC? You should be thinking about both standards out of the box.
So I think that day one you should already, yes, not necessarily think about which framework you want to do, but you need to start building your compliance and security program, from the tools that you are using to the certification and attestation that you will want to do in the future. But like Meiran said before, for like there's a segmentation, between SOC 2 and ISO. Like the SOC 2, it's mostly for SaaS companies that want to penetrate the US market, and ISO is more for companies that want to penetrate in Europe. Even though we see more and more companies in Europe asking for SOC 2, but building the compliance program and finding the partner to do that, it should be the priority from day one. But maybe Meiran can talk more about that, of course.
Let's hear it, Meiran.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
I think, look, penetrating, selling globally, this is a thing that it's critical today, but critical to try both. Start with a local market. Really, very much depend on the potential of the local market on one end, and maybe find some product market fit. Mm-hmm. I think it's depend on the problem that you're solving. If it's kind of a local problem, you might have some very local regulation, something that they have like some very specific procedure in specific language for specific audience. So you need to first assess if this is a global thing or a local thing. And now, that's make a lot of sense for some companies to do stuff that are global and go sell internationally. Then you have the operational, I would say, challenges, right? You need to give support by being multiple language, multiple time zone. You need to keep the data in the right regions. You need to find customers, support customers, whatever. And all of this actually require for the company to be in compliance. So part of their strategy into penetrating for global markets, they should take in assessment the laws and regulations in the market, customers' expectations when it comes for what level of security they would expect their vendors to have. So I think that's critical.
Meiran, Ryan said that he had a really good experience working with Scytale, and I'm just curious. I think not everybody will know who that's on the call today, but you have a background with Ernst & Young. So, I guess you were in an auditing role as well. Is that correct? And
yeah.
Okay, so you were one of the guys pulling your hair out then. So, and the upset guys.
It's not that bad, Steve. Don't worry.
It's not that bad. Well, you both have full heads of hair, so it looks like it's working out more hair actually than I do. So it looks like it's working out. But I guess the point being is, how did that lead? I mean, what did you understand that must have led you on a voyage to start Scytale? And so, what was that vision?
When I was working at EY, I was managing multiple audits at Israel, the United States. I had a chance to work with great people from different roles. Might be the chief information security officers, might be the chief technology officers in smaller organization, might be the operation manager, the project manager, product manager, DevOps, VP R&D. multiple engineers and security and operational people that faces SOC 2. I was their auditor. I came to attest the company to test the company, and they needed their role was to pass their company the test. And I could see and feel their pain, doing many things manually, taking screenshots, supplying evidence that will be sufficient for the controls. For some systems and platforms, they didn't have access. So they needed to go and ask from their colleague if they can assist them in the process. And then their colleague, also very busy, they need to find time, allocate time, assist them. Maybe then it's not going to be very sufficient, so they will have some subsequent tasks that they will need to do. So they kind of need to ask favors. Maybe not favors is the right word, but they need to ask for their colleagues' time and attention. So because I could see the pain from their side, I thought and I believe that there is a better way doing things, understanding the auditor's perspective, and then also understanding the compliance officer's perspective or the governance, compliance and the security perspective. And that's what made me to believe that it could be done better, easier, effortless. It could be simple. It's very complex, and in my vision, it was very, very simple, easy to use, and that's what brought me for my next venture.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, I look at all the different standards and have been exposed to some of these things a little bit, but not having a security background, it does seem very complicated, and it seems like it requires a lot of skills, and there's probably stumbling blocks that you see companies run into again and again and again and make the same mistakes. How does Scytale, how do you actually help streamline it? How do you make this simpler?
All right. So, I was just thinking a couple of days ago. We have companies around the world in the United States, Israel, South Africa, and I need some accounting services. Now, being an accountant, I would say it's not easy at all. You need to have very specific skills and mindset, but I couldn't do it myself. I couldn't. It will be first a waste of my time because this is not my forte. That's not the core of what I do. Second, the quality might be low. I might miss a lot of things. I don't really know. I'm not an expert when it comes for the accounting aspects. And I was thinking, when you're going for an audit, when you're going for a regulation, when you're going for, in that case, security audit, it's very similar to financial audit, just the focus is different. So I always think that working with the expert, customize thing and fine-tune them for your company, and not fine-tuning the company for the platform. This is very important. So today we help customers mainly three things. That's reducing. Number one, it's reducing in 90% the labor hours of all of the preparation and evidence collection. Second, it's reducing, making the process take at least 3 times faster. For many companies, it's urgent to sign deals or some other reasons. So 3 times faster, and eventually reducing the total cost of compliance. So it will be actually more cost effective working with us, or do it yourself when it comes for time, for money.
Oop. Uh-oh.
It's all right?
Yeah, it looks like we just came back. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like froze up there for a second. Hopefully everything's is still in there. Okay. So reducing the time to evidence faster, or making it easier to collect the evidence, process it faster process, and more cost effective. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Think about it as kind of the CRM. CRM is where you're managing your marketing, sales, maybe service. Our platform does the same with compliance. Just one place where compliance happens, evidence collection, managing audit, policies and procedure, collaboration for everyone that will be involved, and make it simple.
Okay. That's really interesting. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of SaaS and the internet, is that everyone can focus on these different, we say niches, but to me, security isn't a niche. It's really a horizontal that should be applied everywhere. having worked in IoT and knowing a little bit about IoT security, I don't have any IoT devices in my house because it's not existent. So it's good to see that more is being done in security here. What are the, going back to something, what are the stumbling blocks you see companies coming up again and again? What are the classic mistakes organizations make?
Yes, maybe I will start, but I'm sure also Kevin.
Kevin.
I don't know, maybe thousands of companies so far, but just on a nutshell, on my end, companies' biggest roadblocks or things that keep them apart is first after they understand what they need, will be, well, where do I start? What do I need to do? How much time it's going to take me? What will be the timeline? What will be the total cost? Is it only the auditor? Is it also a platform, a consultant, penetration test? Maybe I need to deploy some additional tool. Antivirus is mandatory or voluntary. Do I need to do that? Answering that question always depends on the size of the organization, of the risk, of the framework. So taking all of this together is, again, finding the right person can save a lot of time and money, the right partner that can assist you in the process. And I would say that critical, and second is harnessing the relevant people. If you're already spending the time and already doing that, at least get some value out of it. That's just my approach. You already put in the time, right? But also, I think Kevin, from all the companies he's in, what do you think, Kevin? Like, what do you see like the most challenging thing for companies?
Yeah, so just like Steve said at the beginning of the call, there's always a conception around audit that is not very positive. Let's put it that way. Every time that there is an audit, we think, okay, it's going to be very tough. It's going to be very complicated. So the first thing is that customers they come now earlier and earlier in their process. Okay, most of them have a security mindset. I mean, it's not an issue on that part, but the main challenge that I see is that they need to understand that security and compliance are two different things. Of course, like they click together, but those are two different things. Like for example, okay, in Israel we have many founders who are security guys. Worked in the army, worked in security, and they have huge background on security. But in order to pass an audit and to provide all the evidence that you need to do that, you need to have documentation, like good documentation that will not be weak, that will show your auditor that they can have reasonable assurance that the controls are operating effectively. So that is the main challenge that I see. Like, for example, if we talk, like, I'm not going to enter into detail of controls, but if we talk about like a user access review or the way that they manage access to their system in general, I mean, I don't see many companies here that have like a bad process, or that have a process that is not working. That there are employees that still have access to data when they shouldn't. But at the end of the day, they will need to provide evidence to the auditor that will be accepted, and that's where either you have the time and the knowledge to do that, or you will have to find some help in order to provide the right set of evidence for the customer. So that's the first point. And the second point, I already said that, but it's important that the customer understand that they own the process. No matter who they work with, they need to make sure that they define their controls. The auditor is here only to check that, and making sure that you understand, the different hats that there is, auditors, consultants, is also something that is very important when you set expectation with a client, and when they are at the beginning of their road, they need to absolutely understand the different side of the business.
Okay, really interesting. So much of what both of you have said echoes each other. It's the thing about people knowing what you need to know, and getting the earlier you start, and auditing is a discovery process, helps you understand. Meiran, when is the perfect time for a company to engage with you? At what size? If someone's building a B2B SaaS, at what size should they be engaging with you?
I think when in very initial stages, that's very much depend. All right, that's very much depend, because we work with across like multiple industry with companies from the cybersecurity space, payments, banking, human resource, automation, AI, everything. Some of the companies started very enterprises. They have thousands of employees. It's complex. They have dozens of development teams and hundreds of applications and multiple products. And there is different kind of complexity over there. But when speaking about startups, starting their journey, I would say in a very early stage. I'm also a mentor in the AWS Cloud Accelerator. Great for startups, great program run by the AWS. And I've been speaking with companies in their pre-seed round, like 2 employees in the companies. After ideation, working on their MVP. General, I would say from pre-seed, it might start be relevant. Pre-seed, you have some money, then you need to go out to the market for your potential customer. You need to speak with the customer and see if they're asking you about any kind of security or compliance or regulation, or maybe legal commitment that they expect you to sign on. Because if they do, you want to be protected. You want to win the deal. I worked with companies that want to enter into the Zoom marketplace, and they needed to have SOC 2. I worked with companies, they want to be a design partner for another enterprise, and only to be a design partner, they've been asked to supply compliance. Also, other companies that they were going for their A round, and as part of the due diligence, their investor actually asked them, you must be compliant. And of course, customers. So it can come from many different angles. And you just need to be in touch, communicate, speak, and understand. That might be relevant to you.
That's a really important point. I think so many B2B SaaSes start out by building an application that sits in someone's partner ecosystem, like Salesforce or AWS or something like that. And as soon as you're sitting there, they don't want you there if you're not secure. So they're not even going to let you in. Kevin?
Yeah, maybe one thing that I want to add here, you mentioned, Meiran, the sales enabler part of the SOC 2, the security part, also, improving the business posture. But one thing that we didn't mention also is that at the end of the day, it will save you some time also, because SaaS companies, when they want to enter a market, to work with a customer, etc., they always receive tons of security questionnaire. Having the framework and the attestation report and the certification already helps cutting in like a very big amount, like percentage, the time spent answering those questionnaires. So I think that it's also something to take in consideration when we say time is money, especially in companies that are very small, and that you will have CEO, CTO, or like a co-founder answering those questionnaires. I think it's also a big improvement of the day-to-day work of the people in the company.
Yeah. Meiran, is there a little badge that people can put on their website once they're Scytale, once they've gotten Scytale compliant and worked with you, so that people can know that they've got a good level of security already?
Of course, we're supplying these badges for those that are became compliant, because what actually we do. First of all, we continuous auditing and monitoring their compliance program. All right. And then they get in real value. They see what's going on all the time. They see risk by first sight. They can fix problem fast. Don't wait for their auditor to find some compliance issues. Second, on the marketing perspective, they can publish this on their website. They can build trust, go with PR, with blog posts. And do everything they can, of course, to be transparent about how hard they work in order to become secure, to protect their customers eventually. It's all about trust. There was the LastPass security incident. I'm not sure if you're aware.
Yes, I am.
Right.
I am aware. Yeah. Yeah, I just got a message saying change all your passwords, everything. That is, that is borderline unforgivable when you're a password company. I mean, I guess it happens, but going back to the thing of trust and confidence, it makes me really doubt their credibility. And if they say going forward or secure, you're kind of like,
Exactly.
So, yeah, right. So that's a good issue. Gentlemen, we've got just about 5 minutes. So if you have any last thoughts, it's probably now or never.
Maybe I do have a question that I want to ask Kevin, because Kevin is managing multiple, like hundreds of audit programs in different technology companies, big teams, and just seeing the progress and the new emerging technologies and new methods. Kevin, what do you think will be the future of audit? Like, do you think that from population and samples perspective, and all, we will be moving to all events perspective? Like, how do you see the future of IT audit?
Okay, so that's a great question. So I think that really companies like Scytale and other automation platform there is in the market have really changed a lot of things in the market. I think that if 4 years ago you would have told me that the market is what it is today, I wouldn't have believed it. So the first thing that they did is that they raised the awareness around everything related to security compliance. There are more posts than ever, around compliance. If it's on LinkedIn, if it's on blogs, podcasts, webinar, I feel that everywhere I look, we talk about SOC 2. So for me, the future of audit will definitely means more automation. Okay, it's hard to say when, how. But what I'm seeing every day is that there are more and more discussions around the use of the tools, scripts. Again, everything is done in order to streamline process even more. So on the side of the auditor, the CPA firms, they will have to adapt to become a mix, of like traditional CPA, like the thing that we used to do, and modern CPA. I mean, we'll still need, auditors will still need to produce work papers, to receive evidence, etc. But they will need to be able to leverage data from automation platform, to be able to read JSON files, to become more technological. And I think that the CPA firms that will succeed in this will be the ones that will know how to work with automation, that will build automation of their own, that will know how to leverage data. There are a lot of business opportunities, coming with all this awareness and this growing market. So that's the way I see it. In the future, more and more automation, more and more scripts. The transition between the operating effectiveness of control towards continuous auditing and continuous monitoring of controls, it's definitely something that will be important in the future.
Here's my prediction, guys. So as the cost of building SaaSes and the technical challenges of building SaaSes goes down, we're going to see more and more SaaSes focusing on regional problems and on niche problems. Also, data, increasingly, we're in an open world where people need to share data, and there's incredible value driven by sharing data. That's going to require a heck of a lot of security, all that, and a heck of a lot of auditing to make sure that's the same. And even when you look at things like open source, where people are increasingly using open source, all that code's got to be audited to make sure that you're not adding bad code into your project. So I think security is I think you guys are just at the tip of the iceberg. And I think this is going to be increasingly relevant as we go forward. And the growth we've seen is nothing to what we're going to see going forward. We've just got 2 minutes left, so if you have any last things, any last comments, that's fine. Otherwise, we can check out in a minute here.
Yeah, I would just want to add for what you said. I think that's very accurate. We also see that automated vehicles based on AI and everything, it's becoming actually a life risk, because if you have a breach into a driving car on like 120 kilometers per hour or mile per hour, that's a life risk. Hospitals making surgeries based on technologies. It's coming to life. It's coming for a life risk, a real risk. And we should find ways to improve compliance. Compliance is always lagging after technology. So improving the compliance and will build trust to eventually protect people, protect what we do, and support emerging technologies, promoting the world for hopefully to be a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Kevin, any last words?
No, I think it was very informative. Thank you for having me to this webinar. Yeah, to finish on a bright note, I think that the future of automation and compliance is really bright, and there are a lot of things that are yet to be explored, and hopefully we will see more of that in the future.
Good. All right. Well, thank you both very much. Thank you to our audience. Yeah, you bet. And thank you to our audience. We'll be recording this. This was recorded, and we'll be sending out a copy of this in the next, probably in the next day or so. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye.
Close to the gods, she's a one, a masterpiece.